Viewers, welcome to this day 4 of the Brand India Arts, Crafts and Design Festival, organized and curated by the India Foundation Center for Public Diplomacy and Soft Power. Everything good has to come to an end. We've had fascinating 3 days. This is the 4th day, and the only regret is after today, tomorrow is going to be the last day. And some of our panels have set such high standards that we hope to continue the same momentum this evening. We're going to be discussing a fascinating topic. India is a land of stories. India has the power of attraction vis-a-vis tourism. So when we were curating this festival, we felt prudent to have this topic. Although we live in a with COVID scenario, we felt somewhere we must begin this particular discussion. So welcome to this day 4 evening panel, Tourism and Arts, Crafts and Design. What can I tell about my panel? They are such stalwarts in the field and we have a diverse panel. But before I introduce the panelists to you, I just wanted to give some data sets. Today, data shows that 1 out of every 11 working people in the world is employed in the tourism industry. In 2016 alone, the tourism industry supported close to 40 million jobs in India as per a report of the World Economic Forum. An economic impact report by the World Travel and Tourism Council has said that India is expected to establish itself as the 3rd largest travel and tourism economy by 2028 in terms of direct and total GDP. Like I said, India is such a culturally diverse country that in each state, city, district and village, there are beautiful stories to share, ones that are unique to that particular area and populace. While I believe that the most powerful way to share these stories is via the people of the region, and that's why we've weaved this panel in with art, craft, and design. First up, we have Charmaine Mirza. Next, we have Prateek Hira. Prateek is a dear friend. He is founder, president, and CEO of Tornos. He also operates 2 other exclusive brands, Gastroots, which is exclusively into gastronomy tours, and another brand, Indian Frontiers, which specializes in researched thematic tours. The concept of walking tours was initiated by Prateek in 1995. He has 2 researches to his credit, one on Sri Lankan tourism as part of his research for the Leeds Metropolitan University, while another research by him was on senior tourism for Center for Tourism Recreation Research. He has 2 postgraduate degrees, one in tourism and one in economics. A warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for joining this panel. I'm going to begin with Charmaine. We'll come to you. Prateek, I'm coming to you next. Before I deep down into some specific questions for you, I want you to highlight, you're someone who's in central India, predominantly in Uttar Pradesh specifically. How do you sort of foresee this tourism and art, craft, and design being intertwined? Your introductory remarks, and then we'll deep dive into your questions.
So, Sudarshan, thank you for the introduction and carrying forward Charmaine's remark that India in itself is a story, basically, which is being told and retold in different forms. So that's how, if you see the structure of our company, which is into immersive travel experiences. So we did not sort of have to work hard for it when we thought of India being as an immersive travel destination. So it was a simple exercise that we just had to document. We just had to connect the local communities. We had to just get into the local crafts, art, understand it, and bring forth to the guests who were coming to appreciate or who were coming to India. So that is the crux of the matter when we are talking about the immersive travel experiences that Charmaine was very rightly discussing about. Now, when we talk of tourism, we sadly have been talking only about the monuments and concrete structures or beaches or mountains. But actually, if you see a monument or history or for that matter, a beach is not the only product, but you have to see it in a totality. So it is the overall experience, which includes art, craft, cuisine, local, and everything, So when it all combines, then it is presented as a combined sort of a package in front of the guests who are coming in. And India has so much, And then when probably, I'm traveling to the south of India, or South Indians are traveling to the north of India, or the east of India, or to the west of India, it changes altogether. There's a huge, huge diversity, I would say. So with India, that's how you say that India is a not subcontinent, but actually continent. So you compare it with Europe. You don't have to change a country. In Europe, you'll have to change a country to see, something in Italy and something else in France and something else in Germany. But in India, you just need to change into few kilometers. No, I state in itself too is a big, big, big a geographical area, and so it is a cultural area as well. So, for example, if you're going to Rajasthan, we were working on one tour which was colors of different. It was about Indian turbans. So we thought that how diversified a simple thing like turban, which is worn in Rajasthan differently, which is colored in Rajasthan differently, in Gujarat differently, Punjab differently. So you can imagine that it's just a turban, an Indian turban, but so many forms of a turban. So this is just one example of how this India as a country projects itself. And there is no duplication, mind you, in Indian crafts or art. It is very unique to its region or in all its forms. And art, craft, cuisine or culture in India has an expressive story to tell. So that is what the immersive experience comes out to be for India. But sadly, we haven't sort of paid attention to it till now. But now, even the businesses, the companies, and even the government is, seeing it in a big way that the culture of India has to be projected in a big way. And during this pandemic, if you see, the Indian Namaste became such a global kind of a thing, which people are now connecting to and associating with. So this is an encouraging note on which we can think that India is sort of slated for a huge kind of a turnaround when things get back to normal and people will revisit their businesses and see things all over again, and how they have to project India apart from its general monuments, concrete structures, history, beaches, and all those tangible aspects of it.
Thank you so much for those introductory remarks. I want to deep dive into some specific questions for you, Prateek. At a time when the government of India, led by Prime Minister, announced its package, he said, we are moving towards, or we wish to aspire towards a Atmanirbhar Bharat, which literally translates as a self-reliant India, self-sufficient India. How exactly do you think, especially art, craft, and design industry, can help tourism to revive Made in India?
No, I think Made in India was seen as a very small word earlier till Prime Minister spoke of it. Frankly speaking, we never thought of Made in India or Atmanirbhar Bharat in such a manner. Of course, tourism was quite Atmanirbhar because it was one unsupported industry, I must say. But then we need to see that how rich in diversity we already are. When we are talking about Made in India, we also need to talk about, he also spoke about the toys in India very recently, that how the industry, the indigenous industry of toys has to be revived. If you remember your childhood, if I go back to my childhood, I remember playing with clay toys and playing with wooden toys and all those things, which now children are missing. So there is enough of made in India products, and when we are talking about tourists, they are coming to see made in India. So, but probably either we are taking it too casually, or we are underestimating ourselves, I would say, whenever it comes to made in India. We are unable to project the way we should have projected, and many countries, mind you, have, even in Asia, if you see countries like Thailand or so many other countries who have projected their own made products as a huge turnaround, huge revenue model. So that's one part of it. And then we have to make it a revenue model, mind you. So whenever any kind of made in India product, or any kind of product which is connected to our culture or civilization or whatever, it has to have a kind of a revenue model, which till now was missing. So once this encouragement has come from our Prime Minister, I think it's going to be a huge game changer for India, and people already are now seeing and going back to their roots and trying to revive things which were into oblivion for quite some time.
Prateek, some of the arts and crafts clusters in India are existing separately, where tourism is not as such a traditional activity, right? How does one then combine the two to affect a win-win for both tourism as well as local artisans and craftsmen?
Sudarshan, I think, because unless any art form, craft, or anything which is traditional is not revenue driven, or which does not see a revenue, it is natural that it will die its own death. So unless and tourism, mind you, can be a huge supportive industry for the revival of such crafts, arts, and whatever, So it might sound out of context, but I tell you a small festival in Bhagalpur. Bhagalpur is a place in Bihar. And there is there is a painting called Manjusha, which very few know about. And connected to this painting, there is a festival, a complete festival, which is called the Mansa Vishehari Festival, which is celebrated in the middle of August or somewhere. Now, the painting and the story and the festival both are connected to the local tradition, and have started thriving very recently when it was supported by tourists. Now, the story, just not to make it very monotonous, I'll just tell you about this short story. Sure. There, it's a tradition which goes back to the Buddhist era, probably. I mean, this festival was being celebrated during the Buddhist time, and there are sort of proofs for it. Where it is said that this Bhagalpur was basically a business town where businessmen stayed and worked. Now, there was this businessman who was a devout devotee of Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva had a daughter called Mansa. She was a snake in the form of a snake. So Mansa approached Lord Shiva, asking him that I also want that people, the way they pray for you, they should also be praying for me. So Shiva said that my devotee, this businessman who was there, he was named Chand Saudagar. And you can approach this Chand Saudagar and request him that people should also give the same respect that they give to my father. Now, this daughter of Lord Shiva, Mansa, went to Chand Saudagar, to which Chand Saudagar did not agree, and he denied. This really put off Mansa, and she cursed Chand Saudagar that all his sons will die. So Chand Saudagar probably had about 6 sons, and all of them died. Much later, another son was born to Chand Saudagar, and he survived. When he got married, on the first night, he died of a snake bite. But the wife of Chand Saudagar, instead of doing the cremation, she took a boat, put the body on that, and traveled with the body of the husband. Seeing the devotion for the husband, the gods, the goddesses, including Mansa, were so happy that they gave life to the husband again. Now, this tradition is celebrated in this festival, and it is a complete art form. They use only 3 colors, probably pink, green, and yellow, if I'm not wrong. So these are the 3 colors that they use, and the depiction is in the form of dolls, in the form of boats, in the form of different clay pots, etc., on which these drawings are made, and ladies, for the long life of their husband and for the prosperity, they celebrate this festival. Now, in year 2000, this was, mind you, a local tradition. In year 2000, we took a small group of artists from the US, and they appreciated and admired this kind of painting and how beautifully it was done, and how minimalistic kind of things were used to paint the objects and the story behind it. And then it became a complete there's a small cult that developed within US, and they started patronizing the painting. And now you can get keychains, you can get different pen stands, etc., in Bhagalpur connected to this kind of a painting. Now, because it became a revenue model. So that's what I wanted to explain through this story, that in India you have clusters, you have each not region also is too big a word. Each city, you can say, each district, you can say, which has a diversity in its art form, in its tradition, in its language, in its culture, and which can always be exploited for tourism and can be interdependent, can become a revenue model, and both can survive.
You partly answered my final question, but I know you work a lot with the government of Uttar Pradesh and several other state governments as well. I want to understand, if you were to put on the hat of a policy maker, what would be the 3 ideas to map these clusters so that both are showcased for as an effective phenomena which enables both culture and commerce, like you pointed out?
So Darshan, how I wish. Wrong question, because as a business person, we are policy breakers, not makers. So we take pride in saying that we are policy breakers. But anyway, to answer your question, recently it's just beginning of this year, because this pandemic hit in the month of March, almost in India, and April was the period when the entire business has stopped. So I thought, then what to do? So I came up with this idea of each district a tourist destination within UP. So what we are doing is we are mapping the district and trying to understand and document what are the products in art, products in traditions, products in cuisine, products in crafts. So we are trying to map this, and we want to showcase that each district has a potential. So this probably, if I had that privilege, which I will never have, and the government is always shy to involve too much of a private input presently. But probably if we have a proper document, sadly we don't have such a document for India. Like Shamin was discussing about the United Nations, the tangible and intangible heritage and everything. It's not only about 17 or 20 or 30 numbers. If we try to, when we talk about Atmanirbhar, let's map our own India. Let's map each state. Let's map each district, and we will come up with, I tell you, like Bhagalpur story I told you. I'm sure nobody knows about such a story or tradition which is existing in a small town or city, whatever you call this place in Bihar. And each place, each district in each state has marvelous story. Like she said, that India in itself is a story. Each district is a story. So documenting would be the first thing. And then we need to be serious about our craftsmen, about our artists, and we have to, because just appreciation, just recognition in forms of awards, etc., may not be enough to make this kind of a domain, which is creative domain, to survive. And sadly, in India, that's the only thing that we get. So in the form of artists, that is probably the reason that you don't see the next generation of artists or next generation of craftsmen following their ancestors into this. And that's how the art form or the music or the dance forms, they finish off. So there has to be a policy to inculcate not only pride, but also link it with a revenue model and involve tourism in a big way and convert each district of India into a tourism product, at least showcasing it. Plus, minus, that's a different story which we'll see later. Infrastructure, we'll see later. But the point is that at least we need to document all these things in one go, and government has all the resources to do all these things, I'm sure.
Thank you so much, Prateek. Sorry, I interrupted you. You want to finish?
No, it's okay. I just wanted to pass it on to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those sophisticated, robust comments. I'll have a couple of questions. I think for both Charmaine and Prateek, I think both of you can answer it in your own ways. I'm not too sure if this is Mr. or Miss D, but here's the question. On the one hand, we will now explore our own country extensively like never before. We are all Atmanirbhar, self-reliant, and the government is encouraging people to step up and generate income through our skill sets. People are taking to art, craft, and design, which implies more tangible things, more packaging, etc. So, on the other hand, we're looking at climate change, reducing our carbon footprint, responsible tourism, sustainable tourism, etc. There's, the method of decluttering as well. Less is more. So how do we draw a balance? I think it's an important question. How do we draw a balance? It is tricky. So who wants to...
Okay, I take that to start with. Now, of course, when the gentleman is talking about the Atmanirbhar Bharat and self-reliant Bharat.
Oh, it's D or Deepika. It's
okay, sorry. So D is talking about Atmanirbhar or self-reliant Bharat. So India, by virtue of its tradition, is sustainable. We, of course, had drifted away. If you notice the recent, our sort of slap on the face of sustainability was so hard that we are, everywhere globally, that we are in the midst of this pandemic. So, and during this pandemic, we have somehow tried to learn our lessons the hardest way and have kind of started going back to our traditions and practicing sustainability as it had to be done. So that's one part of it. So only if we stick to our traditions, I really feel that we are sustainable by virtue of being Indians. And if we just follow our Indian culture, our Indian traditions, a lot of problem is solved. I'm sure it is not possible to the extent that we are thinking about it. And once the pandemic is over, in a year or two, we will go back to our ways and forget what problems we had, which is very natural. The other point is that when we are talking about tourism, mind you, tourism is an industry which is supposed to generate minimum carbon have a minimum carbon footprint. It was when we as a students studied tourism, we were told that a tourist should go to a place and only leave the marks of his footsteps and only bring back photographs. So that's sustainability for tourism. It has gone beyond that when we talk about huge hotels coming up and huge facilities, etc. But of course, a lot of attention is being paid by all countries, including our own country, India, in terms of environment and sustainability. Another most important point that I often see is that when we are talking about sustainability, like for example, we were discussing this topic about art and artisans and craftsmen and all those things, we are somewhere not paying attention to economy. So when we are talking about sustainability, economy also should come as a major part of that sustainability. So sustainability, of course, is about the environment and ecology and everything, but then economy also plays a very, very important role to sustain something. So that's my take on it.
Thank you so much. I think that was such a relevant answer from an ancient civilizational perspective, touching upon the contemporary angle as well. Okay, I have some good news and bad news. The good news is we've had a great discussion. Too much food for thought today. But the bad news is the panel comes to a close, and regrettably so. The only other regret is we should have done this in person, maybe at the bridge that Henna showed us. Sometime maybe we will do it. Heartfelt gratitude to all our panelists for sharing their expertise. I think it was an informal, candid, and scholarly exchange. And I must add that footnote where all of you shared so willingly, and you were brutally honest with what you had to share. So thank you so much for that. Thank you to our viewers here as well as on Facebook for joining us for this fascinating panel. I'm also told a lot of our media friends have seen some of our discussions starting from day 1 to day 4, and they will also be joining tomorrow. So thank you to them as well. I just want to wind up.